Welcome back to The Art of Reflection, the podcast where we dive deep into ideas that shape our lives. In today's episode, we're exploring a philosophy that has something both unsettling and liberating to say about how we live: existentialism. And if you think existentialism is just about angst-ridden philosophers and brooding thoughts, you're in for a surprise. The existentialists focus on a very personal question that we all wrestle with. What do we do with our freedom? It's a question about how we face the world, how we create meaning, and how we confront the inevitable realities of life, from fear and anxiety to death and absurdity. And I'll tell you, the existentialists don't offer simple answers. What they offer is a deep, profound invitation to live more fully, authentically, and radically. So take a moment, settle in, and let's take a journey through existentialism and the themes that make it one of the most relevant schools of thought for our everyday lives: freedom, fear, absurdity, and authenticity. Let's begin with freedom, the cornerstone of existentialist thought. You've probably heard the phrase, "with great power comes great responsibility." Well, in existentialism, the idea is that with great freedom comes great anxiety. Søren Kierkegaard, often called the father of existentialism, put it this way: anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Now, that's not a line you'd expect to hear in a self-help book, but let's dive into what Kierkegaard meant. We live in a world where we're not tied down to a single role, not bound by destiny or fate. Every day we are faced with choices, from the small ones, like what to eat for lunch, to the big ones, like career or relationships. And it's the potential to make choices that brings anxiety. Why? Because when we have choices, we also face the weight of the responsibility those choices carry. Imagine this: you're standing at a crossroads in life. You know you can go in several directions, but you don't know where they will lead. The potential paths may bring joy or regret, success or failure. It's up to you to choose. That freedom is terrifying. But here's the thing: Kierkegaard saw this anxiety as something deeply human. It's the very marker of our freedom. It's a call to live deliberately, to choose and own our choices. Kierkegaard's deep focus on individual anxiety influenced a lot of later thinkers, especially in the realm of psychology. His concept of the leap of faith, the idea that we sometimes need to take bold actions without absolute certainty, echoes in modern psychological strategies for dealing with fear and uncertainty. Fast forward to the 20th century, and here we have Albert Camus, who confronts the absurd, the idea that life has no inherent meaning. The world, in Camus' view, is indifferent to existence, and yet we have an innate drive to find meaning, to make sense of it all. This clash, the search for meaning in a meaningless universe, is what Camus called the absurd. Camus is often associated with his essay The Myth of Sisyphus, where he tells the story of the Greek mythological figure Sisyphus, condemned to push a boulder up a hill for eternity, only to have it roll back down each time, a seemingly pointless task. For Camus, Sisyphus represented the human condition. We struggle, we strive, we try to find meaning, but in the end, it all fades away, often feeling like we're pushing a boulder up a hill. Yet, Camus doesn't leave us in despair. In his view, the absurd hero's triumph comes not in escaping the absurd, but in fully embracing it. He argues that we must imagine Sisyphus as happy because, in the face of the absurd, the only real rebellion is to continue. It's about finding meaning in the struggle itself. Now we arrive at Jean-Paul Sartre, one of the most famous existentialists. Sartre took the idea of freedom even further. For him, existence precedes essence. This means that we're not born with an inherent purpose or essence. We create ourselves through our actions. We define our lives not through pre-existing roles, but through what we choose to do. But with this radical freedom comes a heavy burden. Man is condemned to be free. That's Sartre's harsh yet profound declaration. Why condemned? Because once you accept that you're free, truly free, it means you are responsible, not only for your actions, but also for the choices that others make. Every action, every decision contributes to the shaping of the world. This is where Sartre's concept of bad faith comes in. It's the way we lie to ourselves to escape the responsibility of freedom. Sartre argued that we often mask our freedom behind excuses like saying, "I had no choice," but in reality, we always have a choice. Think about moments where you've blamed circumstances or others for your situation. Sartre would argue that we often choose to not face our freedom because doing so is uncomfortable. Now that we've examined freedom, let's talk about what it means to live authentically. For existentialists, authenticity means living in accordance with your true self, not the roles society imposes on you, but your raw, genuine being. Kierkegaard warned us that many people live in a state of despair, and this despair isn't about being sad, it's the despair of not living in truth with oneself. It's about wearing masks, it's about pretending, it's about fitting into roles that aren't truly yours. But how do we break free from this inauthenticity? How do we become ourselves? Authenticity for Sartre meant facing your own existence and embracing your ability to choose. It's about not letting others define you, not about being content with easy answers, but instead creating your own path. Existentialism is not a philosophy reserved for the classroom or the armchair philosopher. It's something that plays out in your life every single day. You may feel anxious about what to do with your life. You've got 100 options, but none of them feel perfect. You might feel a sense of the absurd when you wake up and think, is this all there is? The routine, the work, the grind. You might hide behind roles, as the friend, the employee, the partner, instead of confronting who you are beyond those labels. Existentialism calls us to reflect on these moments, to question, to confront, and ultimately to live freely and authentically. So, what can we take away from existentialism? First, that life isn't about finding the perfect answer. There is no one right path, there's only freedom. The freedom to choose. The freedom to create meaning, and the freedom to confront the fear and absurdity that comes with it. Existentialism isn't a philosophy of despair, it's a philosophy of courage, a philosophy that dares us to look at life, at the world, and ourselves without illusion. And if you joined me for last week's episode on Stoicism, you might be wondering, how do these two philosophies relate? In many ways, they stand in contrast. Stoicism teaches us that we should align ourselves with nature and accept what we cannot control. It encourages calm through detachment and reason, to find peace in surrendering to the natural order. Existentialism, by contrast, begins with the idea that there is no inherent order. It tells us that meaning isn't discovered, it's created. Instead of serenity through acceptance, existentialism offers authenticity through confrontation. But simply, the Stoic seeks serenity by mastering the self and trusting in the structure of the cosmos, while the existentialists embrace the unsettling freedom of choice and builds a meaning in a world without guarantees. But both, in their own way, invite us to live more deliberately. So whether you resonate more with the calm resilience of the Stoics or the radical honesty of the existentialists, the invitation is the same: to wake up, to reflect, and to live with intention. If something in this episode resonates with you, sit with it, reflect on it, and choose. And if you like to continue these quiet journeys through thought, make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with someone who might enjoy it too. Until next time, keep questioning, keep reflecting, and stay curious.